I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Thank you for listening to Your Working Life, my podcast series featuring thought leaders in the career and personal growth arena. You spend a significant portion of your life at work, so my goal is to provide you with tools, inspiration, and resources so you can enjoy your career and love your life. And I am delighted to welcome my very special guest to the show today, Monique Tallon. Monique, welcome to the show. So glad to have you today.
So good to be here with you, Caroline. Thank you for having me.
Well, I've got your gorgeous book in front of me, and I tell you, it is dog-eared, it is highlighted, it is paper-clipped. I absolutely love this resource, and we're going to talk all about it today. It's called Leading Gracefully, A Woman's Guide to Confident, Authentic, and Effective Leadership. But let me tell our listening audience a little bit about you, Monique. You are the CEO of Highest Path Consulting, an international executive coaching and training company focused on building inclusive leaders and organizations. And you're the author of this amazing new book, as I mentioned, and you combine your corporate background working in Silicon Valley with your coaching expertise to work with hundreds of executives in companies like Microsoft, Deloitte, Farmers Insurance, and many others. And you also write for the Huffington Post on issues related to diversity and inclusion, as well as women's leadership. So let's dive right in. What prompted you, Monique, to write this book?
Thank you for the question, Caroline. You know, what prompted me was really my own experience working in Silicon Valley, which, we know is still very male dominated. And really having an experience as a young manager, I was in my mid-20s, working in this male dominated industry without a lot of real female role models that I could look up to. And even though I worked for a company called eBay, you may have heard of them.
I have heard of them. Yes, I have. A little company, right?
Just a little tiny company. Yep. And at the time, Meg Whitman was our CEO.
Yes.
So it was run by a female. She was doing a great job. And inside the company, there was, I would say, pretty good parity between men and women. So it wasn't for a lack of women. It was really just a lack of women that I resonated with.
Yeah.
And what I saw really all around me were women who were, sort of showing up with a traditional leadership style, very micromanagey, kind of command and control, very hierarchical. And that, didn't sit well with me. And I thought, there must be a different way that women can show up in the workplace, and still be taken seriously, without being labeled the nice girl. So through my own experiences working there and really experimenting with my own leadership style and coming to the conclusion that, there is a different way that women can show up by leaning into their feminine strengths, the strengths that they bring to the table. And through my own experiences, realized that this was actually a whole new world that existed, that I sort of tripped on and found, just by experimenting and taking risks, So I wanted to take all that learning and put it in a book to offer to women who, maybe don't want to make the same mistakes and maybe want a quicker path to finding a leadership style that works for them and feels more authentic.
And I think the authenticity resonates so much. I just had this wonderful exhale when I first read the book because it gave me permission to be me and to leverage some of my, as you say, feminine leadership qualities. I think it's a beautiful opportunity for women to say, I can do this my way. I don't necessarily have to do it the way my male counterparts do it. And that's beautifully gratifying.
I think so. I mean, it was for me. And I know I talk to so many women who grapple with this challenge of having to wear a mask at work, right? So you leave parts of yourself at home and then you bring your work self to the workplace. And, that's exhausting. That takes up a lot of energy to put up with that facade. And I thought, I just want to offer women a sort of an alternative so they don't have to force themselves to kind of conform and adopt to what they think is right. And so I really think that this is something that women are looking for. They're hungry for something that just allows them, gives them permission to be themselves.
I so agree. So let's talk about the ideal audience for the book. Is this for the woman already leading? Is this for the emerging leader? Tell us who is best suited to benefit from the book.
That's a great question. My colleague over at Microsoft read the book, and she works in the diversity and inclusion department. And she said, this book is great for women who are just entering the workplace and are looking for tips on how to, be great leaders, but also senior executives who have been in the field and who have been working for a number of years could also benefit from it because, I think both sides of the spectrum have different types of challenges, but the book really speaks to really women who want to be leaders, who are new leaders, but also women who might want to learn a new thing or two, or learn how to sort of bring some of their softer qualities into the workplace, which I think a lot of senior women executives struggle with.
I would agree. I'm so glad that you said that the book has a wide range of women who would benefit from reading it. I also think the guys can learn a lot from reading this book, about how to interact with female colleagues. Perhaps they have a female leader, or perhaps they are supervising other women in an organization. So I would also add that I think men would enjoy reading it.
You know what? I absolutely agree. And a number of men have read the book and have approached me and said, you know what? Thank you so much for writing this book. I could learn so much from it. These are leadership qualities that I think men can
Yeah.
also emulate. And it's absolutely true. These are, leadership traits that really people are looking for in their leaders today. There was a study that was done that I cite in the book. It was called the Athena Doctrine Study. And they surveyed 64,000 people around the globe, and they asked them to categorize qualities of leadership between masculine and feminine, and then rate those in order of preference. And what they found was there was a preference for leaders to show up with more feminine qualities. So people in the 21st century have moved away from looking for sort of command and control style leaders to leaders who are much more inclusive and collaborative. And they're looking for their leaders to be transparent, to be honest, authentic, expressive, but also to show vulnerability, right? And to connect on that human level. So I think men struggle with that a little bit
Yeah.
because, they're taught not to show any emotions and that feelings are scary. So this, I think, gives them permission to lean into those types of leadership qualities that people are really looking for in the 21st century.
Let's talk a little bit about vulnerability. You really illustrate that so beautifully in the book, and I think that is something that women and men shy away from. Wanting to appear
Mm-hmm.
strong and put together, and I've got this completely under control.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a relatability that comes with vulnerability that is surprising to some. Would you speak to that?
It is surprising. And, I'm a big fan of the work of Brene Brown. I mean,
Yes,
she's
yes,
the queen of
she
this
is.
work around vulnerability. And through my own experience, I came to realize that, we should be looking at vulnerability as a strength because it is what connects us to other human beings. And I experienced this personally, and I shared this story in the book. I'll share it with you quickly here. Where when I was working in the corporate world, I was working at eBay and I was tasked to produce a 10,000 person conference. And I had never done anything like that before in my life, never to that scale. And so on the first day of our big task force conference meeting, I walked in and there were 20 executives looking at me. And at the time I was fairly young. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to be vulnerable and I'm going to ask for their help because
Good for
actually
you.
I need it.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So
And
why
that's
not
okay.
just
Yeah.
be honest? And, it was a bit of a risk, but I did. I went in there and I looked them in the eye and I said, listen, you guys, I want this to be the best conference that we produce, but I need your help. Help me make this a huge success. And just by opening up and being vulnerable in that moment, I think really empowered them to step in and take full responsibility and really step in and be collaborative.
Good for
So
you. And it was a raving success. I'm sure they embraced you.
they absolutely did. And they stepped in, they gave it their all, and we pulled off the best, conference our company had ever seen in 10 years. So that experience and many others really made me understand that, if we just dare to be ourselves, dare to be authentic, dare to ask for help in appropriate situations, that can be extremely powerful.
Great story. So, Monique, why do we continue to have this leadership gap for women in the workplace? I mean, it's getting better, but my goodness,
Yes.
baby steps.
Baby steps, yes. And, there are many contributing factors. But the one that I talk about a lot in the book is what I call the confidence gap, that I think is very correlated to the leadership gap. I think women struggle with confidence much more than men do. And when we have this, self-doubt going on, and when we struggle with our confidence, it prevents us from taking actions, right? So if you underestimate your self-worth, you may not negotiate the best salary for yourself. If you underestimate your abilities, you may not raise your hand for that opportunity when it presents itself, right? So our thoughts are what leads to actions. And if we don't believe that our actions will have positive outcomes, we're going to hold ourselves back from, taking that proverbial seat at the table. So, what I really work with a lot with women is how to build self confidence, because without that integral piece, you're not going to take those steps when they present themselves, and that adds into this leadership gap that we see today. I think a lot of women hold themselves back from going for positions that they may not think they're qualified for, or speak up because they don't feel their opinion might be valued, or what have you. So each of those things adds up over time, and I think it contributes to this leadership gap that we still see today.
So, I'd love to pick your brain as an executive coach. How do you help women unearth their self-confidence, because it's tricky, it really is. And I think what the beautiful takeaway in this book for me, so many, but one just to share with our listening audience, so many times I recognized myself in your descriptions, and I thought, okay, and I'm a coach, I teach people how to lead well, but self-doubt is pervasive no matter where we are in our
Mm.
career. And this book was very empowering, that I could recognize myself and reflect that inner self-confidence. But how do you walk women through that?
So I work with two aspects, the mind and the body,
Mm.
because there's absolutely a mind body connection. Behavioral science has shown us that. And what is confidence? Confidence is a belief, right? It's a belief that
Yeah.
our actions are going to have a positive outcome, but it's also a feeling, right? And that feeling can be sometimes hard to describe, but we know the feeling of confidence,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
You know when you're feeling at the top of your game. And so it's this dual thing of the mind and body working together. So I first like to work on the belief systems, because that's really what, again, prevents us from taking those steps, those action steps. So looking at what are our inner critics telling us? What is that inner dialogue, those self-limiting beliefs that we tend to tell ourselves over and over and over again? And really bringing those to the surface, because without really having conscious awareness of those sort of belief systems, it's really hard to make any changes. So the first step is bringing those to our conscious awareness so that we can actually do something about it, so we can change those belief systems. So I have this great exercise where I have my clients actually write out the words of their inner critic. Now, my inner critic, I've named her. Her name is Judge Judy.
Oh, okay. Got it.
because my inner critic loves to judge me and she's ruthless, just like Judge Judy. She just likes to tell me how it is, and usually at very inopportune moments, like when I'm in front of groups of people.
Of course, of course.
So I have a very, very critical judge inside of me that makes me feel not good enough. And so I know when Judge Judy is happening in my brain because I can identify those words, and the minute I notice those sort of, lines happening, I can actually shift out of that because I go, oh, there's Judge Judy again. Thanks, Judge Judy. I appreciate
I'm
your
good.
comments. I'm good. I got this. And then I can tap into my inner cheerleader. And that is the part of me that, knows that I do have this, knows that I'm competent, that I have worked my butt off to get here, that I know my stuff, and I'm going to do a great job. So it's just shifting from, one perspective to another, one voice to another. And all of us have that part of us that knows that we're good enough. So it's just a matter of turning up the volume on our inner cheerleader and working on those belief systems. So that's the first part. And then the second part is really leaning into our bodies and developing body awareness and body wisdom. And I love the work of Amy Cuddy. Who works with the power poses. So I work a lot with those, and that helps us get into the mindset of confidence just by changing our posture. So taking the superwoman pose or taking up space of any type, that can help us shift into a more confident feeling. So it's really working on both ends of the spectrum, the mind and the body.
That's great. So, Monique, I absolutely agree that we have to combat our own internal respective Judge Judys. Do you have a support system of women and perhaps men that are part of your personal board of directors who also cheerlead on your behalf and help remind you of the great work that you do and are capable of?
Absolutely. I am a firm believer of having those, those members of the board of directors who are going to be your allies, your cheerleaders, your supporters, your sounding boards. My husband is my number one
That's great.
support. I mean, without him, without his constant belief in me, I definitely would not be where I am today. So he's my go-to. And then I have my own coach that I work with, who I've worked with for several years, who's my sounding board. She's my, confidant. She's my, the person who lifts me up when I don't believe in myself or things like that. Just that constant support system, which is just invaluable. So, not to plug our profession, but having an executive coach or a personal coach is hugely important, and I can contribute a lot of my success to my coach, who supported me throughout the years. So those are some of the types of people, and just, a few other close friends who know me really well, who can remind me of my accomplishments and of all my strengths in those moments of doubts. I know who to call. I know who's on my speed dial. So I think everyone should have their board of directors who support them.
Listen, plug for the coaches. I, too, as a fellow coach, have coaches. And I think sometimes clients and even colleagues are shocked to hear that. But of course, coaches have coaches. I mean, that's what it's all about. And one other shout out to you. I know that you absolutely advocate for women helping each other and paying it forward, and for women looking out for fellow women on the leadership ladder pipeline. So I thank you for that. You're a great ambassador in that regard.
Thank you. I'm a huge believer that one of the ways to combat this leadership gap is to, form the girls' club. We know that the men have the boys' club. There's nothing wrong with it. But why don't we have the girls' club, right? So how do we actually form those networks within our peer groups at work, for instance? How do we actually cheerlead each other and support one another and amplify each other's voices? There was a great article about White House staffers and how the women who were working for the White House decided that to get their voices heard, they would amplify each other. So when somebody would have a great idea, another woman on the team would second that idea, and then a third. And this way they were able to support one another, and now they feel much more heard. And the president obviously has done a lot of work to bring gender parity on his staff. But that's a great example of how women can support one another. So, huge
Indeed.
believer.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Well, your extraordinary book is Leading Gracefully, A Woman's Guide to Confident, Authentic, and Effective Leadership. Monique Tallon, tell us how we can buy the book and connect with you out in the world of social media.
Absolutely. So my book is available on Amazon and other e-tailers online, Barnes and Noble, for example. So feel free to go out and purchase the book on those places. You can find me at moniquetallon.com and also connect with me on Twitter at Monique Tallon. So very simple.
Monique, thank you so much. What a joy to have you on the show. I love, love, love your book. I'm so grateful for the amazing and transformative work you're doing. And I hope our paths cross again soon.
Me too. Thank you so much, Caroline. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
And I want to thank all of you for tuning in to Your Working Life, where my goal is to help you design your career destiny so it doesn't happen by default. Career and life satisfaction is possible, and it's time to embrace what you love doing so you can do more of it. The show is now available on iTunes, YouTube, Podbean, and Stitcher. I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Take good care.